Are you preparing the country to go back to war?
I'm preparing the country to make sure that we deal with a threat from ISIL. Keep in mind, this is something that we know how to do. We've been dealing with terrorist threats for quite some time. This administration has systematically dismantled al-Qaeda and the Fatah. We just yesterday announced the fact that we had taken out the top leader of al-Shabaab, the terrorist organization in Somalia. ISIL poses a broader threat because of its territorial ambitions in Iraq and Syria. But the good news is, coming back from the most recent NATO meeting, is the entire international community understands that this is something that has to be dealt with. So what I have done over the last several months is, first and foremost, make sure that we got eyes on the problem, that we shifted resources, intelligence, reconnaissance. We did an assessment on the ground. The second step was to make sure that we protected American personnel, our embassies, our consulates. That included taking airstrikes to ensure that towns like Erbil were not overrun, critical infrastructure like the Mosul Dam was protected, and that we were able to engage in key humanitarian assistance programs that have saved thousands of lives. The next phase is now to start going on some offense. We have to get an Iraqi government in place, and I'm optimistic that next week we should be able to get that done. And I will then meet with congressional leaders on Tuesday. On Wednesday, I'll make a speech and describe what our game plans are going to be going forward. But this is not going to be an announcement about U.S. ground troops. This is not the equivalent of the Iraq War. What this is similar to the kinds of counterterrorism campaigns that we've been engaging in consistently over the last 5, 6, 7 years. And the good news is that because of American leadership, we have, I believe, a broad-based coalition internationally and regionally to be able to deal with the problem.
What are you asking of the American people on Wednesday? You say you're giving a speech. That's the type of thing, I assume, you're preparing the country for something. What are you asking of them? What do you want? Yeah. What do you want the American people to receive?
Well, more than anything, I just want the American people to understand the nature of the threat and how we're going to deal with it, and to have confidence that we'll be able to deal with it.
You realize you're giving that speech the day before the 13th anniversary of 9/11.
Right. But right, and I want everybody to understand that we have not seen any immediate intelligence about threats to the homeland from ISIL. That's not what this is about. What it's about is an organization that, if allowed to control significant amounts of territory, to amass more resources, more arms, to attract more foreign fighters, including from areas like Europe, who have Europeans who have visas and then can travel to the United States unimpeded, that over time that can be a serious threat to the homeland. In the more immediate term, it's a threat to friends, partners in the region, and is causing all kinds of hardship. And we've seen the savagery, not just in terms of how they dealt with the two Americans that had been taken hostage, but the killing of thousands of innocents in Iraq, thousands of innocents in Syria, the kidnapping of women, the complete disruption of entire villages. So what I'm going to be asking the American people to understand is, number one, this is a serious threat. Number two, we have the capacity to deal with it. Here's how we're going to deal with it. I am going to be asking Congress to make sure that they understand and support what our plan is. And it's going to require some resources, I suspect, above what we are currently doing.
This is asking Congress for a vote, an authorization of your strategy. Well, this is not a, what does that mean?
Well,
define that.
I'm confident that I've got the authorization that I need to protect the American people. And I'm always going to do what's necessary to protect the American people. But I do think it's important for Congress to understand what the plan is, to have buy-in, to debate it. And that's why we've been consulting with Congress throughout. This speech will allow Congress, I think, to understand very clearly and very specifically what it is that we are doing, but also what we're not doing. We're not looking at sending in 100 100,000 American troops. We are going to be, as part of an international coalition, carrying out airstrikes in support of work on the ground by Iraqi troops, Kurdish troops. We are going to be helping to put together a plan for them so that they can start retaking territory that ISIL had taken over. We are going to have to work with our regional partners to attract back Sunni tribes that may have felt that they had no connection to a Baghdad government that was ignoring their grievances. And so there's going to be an economic element to this, there's going to be a political element to it, there's going to be a military element to it, and what I want people to understand, though, is that over the course of months, we are going to be able to not just blunt the momentum of ISIL, we are going to systematically degrade their capabilities, we're going to shrink the territory that they control, and ultimately we're going to defeat them.
Long way from when you described them as a JV team.
Well,
was that bad intelligence or your misjudgment?
Keep in mind, I wasn't specifically referring to ISIL. I've said that regionally, there were a whole series of organizations that were focused primarily locally, weren't focused on the homeland, because I think a lot of us, when we think about terrorism, the model is Osama bin Laden and 9/11. And the point that I was...
You don't believe these people...
Not yet, but they can evolve. And I was very specific at that time. What I said was, not every regional terrorist organization is automatically a threat to us that would call for a major offensive. But what is absolutely clear is that ISIL, which started as Al-Qaeda in Iraq and arose out of the U.S. invasion there and was contained because of the enormous efforts of our troops there, then shifted to Syria, has metastasized, has grown, and now we're going to have to deal with them in a systematic way.
They're not a JV team.
Well, they're not a JV team, but keep in mind that we anticipated some of these problems in the speech that I gave in West Point several months ago, where I specifically said our goal should not be to think that we can occupy every country where there is a terrorist organization. Our goal has to be to partner more effectively with governments that are committed to pushing back against the kind of extremism that ISIL represents. And that's going to require us to do things a little bit differently. We're going to have to work smarter. We're going to have to train the militaries there more capably. We've got to do more effective diplomatic work to eliminate the schism between Sunni and Shia that has been fueling so much of the violence in Syria, in Iraq. And so we put together a plan that is compatible with the kind of work that we're doing now.
You've not said the word Syria so far in our conversation. Obviously, if you're going to defeat ISIS, you have used very much stronger language. It's gone through the week during your trip to Wales. You got to go to Syria in some form or another. You've ruled out boots on the ground. And I'm curious, have you only ruled them out simply for domestic political reasons, or is there another reason you've ruled out American boots on the ground? Because your own guys have said you can't defeat ISIS with airstrikes alone.
Well, they're absolutely right about that. But you also cannot, over the long term or even the medium term, deal with this problem by having the United States serially occupy various countries all around the Middle East. We don't have the resources. It puts enormous strains on our military. And at some point we leave and then things blow up again.
Well, that's what happened with Iraq.
So we've got to have a more sustainable strategy, which means the boots on the ground have to be Iraqi.
What about in Syria?
And in Syria, the boots on the ground have to be Syrian. And that's why...
Who?
Well, we have a Free Syrian Army and a moderate opposition that we have steadily been working with, that we have vetted. They have been on the defensive, not just from ISIL, but also from the Assad regime. And what, if you will recall at the West Point speech that I gave, I said we need to put more resources into the moderate opposition, in part because unless we have people we can work with who are Sunni in these Sunni regions, then we're going to continue to have these problems. And so the strategy, both for Iraq and for Syria, is that we will hunt down ISIL members and assets wherever they are. I will reserve the right to always protect the American people and go after folks who are trying to hurt us wherever they are. But in terms of controlling territory, we're going to have to develop a moderate Sunni opposition that can control territory and that we can work with. The notion that the United States should be putting boots on the ground, I think, would be a profound mistake, and I want to be very clear and very explicit about that.
I've had former aides of yours, plenty of supporters of yours, say to me, he looks exhausted. And understandable, a lot going on. Yeah. This has not been a rough year. Are you exhausted?
You know, I actually feel energized about the opportunities that we've got. There are days where I'm not getting enough sleep because we got a lot on our plate. You know, when you're president of the United States, you're not just dealing with the United States. As we saw during the NATO summit, if there's a problem in Ukraine, we're the ones who are expected to mobilize the world's community to isolate Russia, put pressure, support Ukrainians, and to vindicate the principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity and freedom that we stand for. If there's a problem in the Middle East, the expectation is that we create the coalitions to deal with a problem like ISIL. If there's an issue in Africa around Ebola, we need to help mobilize that public health infrastructure. And so, you know, it's not just me, it's my staff also, that where, you know, our inbox gets pretty high.
Do you think you need to rotate? You need to rotate some fresh ideas, some new people in here?
Well, no, actually, my folks are doing really well. But having said all that, despite all those challenges, it is invigorating to see how much U.S. leadership is still appreciated and still expected. You know, when I came back from Wales, I was reminded once again that not only is America the only indispensable nation, but we perhaps have never been more indispensable, and our leadership is making a difference, and that gives you a lot of satisfaction. That keeps you getting up, even if you haven't gotten as much sleep as you want.
I got asked during that vacation, made the statement on Foley, you went and golfed. Do you want that back?
You know, it is always a challenge when you're supposed to be on vacation. Because you're followed everywhere, and part of what I'd love is a vacation from
you want us to stop following
the press, and because
I promise you in 2.5 years.
Yeah,
I think that happens.
Because the possibility of a jarring contrast, given the world's news, is there's always going to be some tough news somewhere, is going to be there. But there's no doubt that after having talked to the families, where it was hard for me to hold back tears listening to the pain that they were going through, after the statement that I made, that I should have anticipated the optics. That's part of the job, and I think everybody who knows me, including I suspect the press, understands that you take this stuff in, and it's serious business, and you care about it deeply. But part of this job is also the theater of it. Part of it is, how are you? How are you? Well, it's not something that that always comes naturally to me, but it matters, and I'm mindful of that. So the important thing is, in addition to that, am I getting the policies right? Am I protecting the American people? Am I doing what's necessary? And when it comes to the policies, when it comes to the actions we've taken, I have no higher priority than keeping the American people safe. I think I've done a very good job during the course of these last close to 6 years doing so. and I intend to continue to meet that responsibility and meet that duty for as long as I have the privilege of holding this office.